When you're pregnant, you hope for one thing above all else, a healthy baby. But even if your newborn has health issues, many of them can be treated if they're caught early enough. Unfortunately, some parents miss warning signs that require immediate attention from doctors. Tonight in my special report, the diagnosis that turned a local family's life upside down and their struggle to get their 4-month-old daughter the surgery she desperately needed.
Stay up pretty. You all the time.
Look at the books. Nice. Baby deer. Yeah.
She's perfect, sweet little girl. Our little baby Alice is 8 months old now.
Cheryl Reed gushes about the birth of her infant daughter Alice in January.
She was flawless in my eyes.
And she was from the outside. But the Reeds would soon learn their new baby wasn't flawless on the inside. In fact, within a few weeks, Cheryl says she began to notice something was wrong with her newborn.
Probably about a month in, I started noticing her forehead looked a little different. She loves to twirl her feet around in circles. She always does that.
Cheryl says she initially thought it was from the birthing process and convinced herself not to worry. But soon she would learn the heartbreaking truth.
At her 4-month checkup is when her doctor brought it up to my attention.
Alice's pediatrician noticed one of her eyes was droopy and her forehead was not symmetrical. A few weeks later, the diagnosis from a neurosurgeon that would change their lives.
She had left coronal craniosynostosis, which her left side of her forehead, her skull, was held back and her right side was growing outwards.
Here's what was causing it. The openings in a baby's skull that allow the brain to grow had closed too soon. As her brain grew, Alice's skull began protruding, which would eventually disfigure her tiny features and possibly lead to developmental problems.
We were just completely shocked.
That shock was followed by panic. Though she was just 4 months old, local doctors considered Alice too old for the less invasive treatment. They said she would need major reconstructive surgery.
Terrified, yes, absolutely. I mean, I was a mess. And I kind of got mad. I was like, how can I not have this smaller surgery? She missed it by a month. There has to be somebody that can still do it.
Cheryl spent hours on the internet searching for a doctor who would do the smaller surgery.
I started writing a lot and getting my thoughts out.
She even started a blog about Alice's journey.
And I just was determined to find a doctor, and I didn't care where I had to go.
She wouldn't have to go far. Doctors in Texas and Boston offered to perform the surgery, but then their insurance company approved a doctor much closer in Washington, D.C. He performed Alice's surgery July 12th.
He opened up a strip of bone from here all the way down to her ear, which basically just opened the skull back up how it's supposed to be.
Cheryl says the surgery was a success.
This was her first helmet, and I decorated with butterflies in the Alice in Cranioland.
Alice, now 8 months old, must wear this little helmet for the next year and a half to shape her head.
Go for a ride?
And there's a good chance she won't have to undergo any additional surgeries. Her birth defect is rare, about 1 in 2,000 births. The majority of babies are born healthy. Pediatrician Dr. Sean McKenna says 99% of the children they see are fine. It's diagnosing that 1% that have something wrong that's critical.
The clock is always running in pediatrics, where the longer you wait in children, the further down the road they are with any given disease.
Alice.
Dr. McKenna says certain genetic disorders like Alice's must be diagnosed early to prevent long-term damage or to avoid major surgery. That's why doctor visits are so frequent in the first year of life.
Check that and that.
He says they're looking for congenital and genetic disorders. Pediatricians now screen for disorders like autism between 12 and 18 months. And you are your child's advocate. Dr. McKenna says if you feel something is wrong, speak up.
What I talk to parents about is trusting their instincts.
And a wee little baby there.
Cheryl says she wishes she had listened to her gut and taken action sooner, but says she's glad her pediatrician caught Alice's problem in time.
No matter how crazy you sound or how paranoid you sound, you need to bring it up.
The Reeds will travel to D.C. next week for Alice's next appointment. Her doctor will make sure her skull is growing properly. Cheryl and her husband Jason want to help other families who have children born with craniosynostosis. You can find a link to her blog on our website, WTVR.com.